I remember once standing out in the open air when one of those glorious little thistledown seeds floated toward me. I caught it gently and brought it down to look at it more closely. It seemed to struggle, as if trying to slip away, much like an insect caught by a single leg. At first I thought, well, it's not actually struggling, it's just the wind moving it. But then I reconsidered. Only the wind? Yes. But isn't it precisely the structure of this delicate thing, in cooperation with the presence of wind, that allows it to move almost like a living creature? It travels with the wind's effort, not its own. In a way, it is more intelligent than an insect. An insect uses force, just as a person rowing a boat must use effort. But the person who raises a sail is using magic. He lets nature carry him, guided only by the intelligence of knowing how to use the sail. With hardly any effort, he gets the whole world to cooperate with him. Think of it like this. Imagine a ruler who is as unknown to you as the local sanitary inspector, the man who looks after drains, sewers, and other unglamorous necessities. Precisely because he is not a public figure, he probably performs his job far more efficiently than a president. The president wastes enormous time meeting delegates, organizations, scouts, social groups, giving honors, shaking hands. His life must be a constant turmoil simply because he is so well known and has almost no time left for the actual governing of the country. But if he were anonymous, someone invisible, someone you didn't have to think about, he might be an excellent ruler. In the same way, you don't have to govern your own body unless something is wrong. Your body regulates itself day after day automatically. The healthier it is, the less you notice it. When your vision is clear, you do not see your own eyes. Only when something is wrong, when spots appear, do you suddenly become aware of the eyes themselves. The same with hearing. When your ears function well, you never hear your ears. But when they start ringing, the ears interfere with their own ability to hear. On the deepest level, a person can obstruct his own existence simply by becoming too aware of himself. In English, the words heartless and mindless carry negative meanings. A heartless person is cold and uncaring. A mindless person is a fool. But in Chinese thought, a person with no heart or no mind is considered someone of the highest order. It means that his inner center does not interfere with itself. It functions as if it were not there. Chuang Tzu said that the highest form of human being uses his mind like a mirror. It grasps nothing, refuses nothing, receives everything, but keeps nothing. A poem explains it beautifully. When geese fly over a lake, their reflections appear in the water. The geese do not intend to cast their reflection, and the water has no mind to hold their image. So the whole point is this: to move through the world as though you are absent. Because being absent is paradoxically the condition for truly being present. Johnson says that when your belt fits properly, you don't feel it at all. When your shoes are truly comfortable, it's as if you aren't wearing any. The more aware you are of these things, the less well they're made. When they fit perfectly, they disappear. This is similar to the state of being in harmony with the Tao. There is a kind of inner weightlessness parallel to the sensation astronauts feel in outer space, or divers experience deep in the ocean. This feeling comes from no longer carrying your body around like a burden. What is this weightlessness? It means that you are no longer moving in constant opposition to yourself. Most people do exactly that. They oppose themselves continuously because they fear that if they stop resisting, something terrible will happen. When human beings develop the ability to be self-aware, to know that they know, when the cortex formed over the original brain, we fell from grace. That was the fall of man, the moment we gained the sensation of being in charge, of being in control of ourselves. And that sensation only arises when we are constantly monitoring what we are doing. From that point on, anxiety began. Am I aware enough? Have I considered every factor? Did I do everything I should have done? And with that questioning, we began to tremble. This is the great human predicament, the rise of self-consciousness, the ability to reflect on our own knowledge. Lao Tzu says, "Look at the universe. The stars appear every night without fail. The sun rises and sets without exception. Birds gather and migrate in perfect rhythm. Flowers and trees always grow upward. All this happens effortlessly. Yet with all your talk of charity and duty, you only introduce confusion into the world. Your attempt to get rid of the self is just another expression of selfishness. You are like a man beating a drum while trying to catch a fugitive, making noise while trying to achieve silence. In other words, try to live in such a way that nothing is fixed as either an advantage or a disadvantage. You can never truly know whether something is fortunate or unfortunate. You know only the immediate change and how it affects your hope or fear in the moment. The Taoist eventually realizes that there is no fixed good or bad, and so his attitude becomes what is called non-choosing. Human beings did not always live in the state of tension that modern life has normalized. In the earliest stages of our existence, we moved, acted, and responded just as every creature in nature does, without self-interference. A bird does not second-guess the angle of its wings. A cat does not rehearse how to leap. A tree does not calculate the direction of growth. Existence flowed through them effortlessly, and at one time it flowed just as effortlessly through us. But the moment self-awareness grew powerful enough to observe itself, a strange break occurred. The mind began to watch the mind. A subtle division appeared where previously there had been unity. This split created the illusion that there is a you who must manage life, control thoughts, direct emotions, and supervise the body like a nervous overseer. Suddenly, the simple act of being alive became a task. From that point on, modern man began to mistrust the natural intelligence of life. He no longer believed the river could carry him, so he tried to push the current. He no longer trusted his body to function, so he micromanaged every sensation. He no longer trusted his feelings, so he attempted to domesticate them. He no longer trusted the world, so he built inner walls of vigilance. The simple flow of existence became tangled in layers of doubt. This is why so many people move through life in constant opposition to themselves. They resist the very forces that are trying to support them. They tighten their muscles when they should release them. They analyze their emotions instead of letting them pass through. They attempt to think their way into peace, not realizing that peace begins where thinking ends. The tragedy is that this self-interference is born not from strength, but from fear. The fear that if one stops controlling, even for a moment, something terrible will happen. The fear that the world is unreliable, that nature cannot be trusted, that life must be monitored at every second. This anxiety is the residue of the fall, the moment when humans first believed they were separate from the process that creates and sustains them. Yet the Taoist understanding points to a different truth. The world was already functioning perfectly before you arrived, and it will continue functioning perfectly long after your worries dissolve. The stars do not need your permission to shine. Your lungs do not ask for instructions before breathing. Every leaf, every tide, every heartbeat is a reminder that the universe knows how to work without your supervision. And the moment you begin to recognize this, even faintly, a small doorway opens. A doorway back to trust, back to the natural intelligence you once fully inhabited, back to a life in which you no longer move against yourself, but with yourself, as naturally as a seed opening or a cloud drifting across the sky. The Taoist principle of Wu Wei is often misunderstood as passivity, laziness, or an escape from responsibility. In truth, it is none of these. Wu Wei means something far more subtle and more powerful, acting in perfect accord with the natural movement of things, so that action feels effortless, like swimming with the current instead of against it. It is the art of non-interference, the ability to participate in life without forcing life. Modern people mistake effort for effectiveness. They believe that unless they strain, push, and exert themselves, nothing will happen. Yet so often, the more they interfere, the more tangled their circumstances become. Just as muddy water becomes clear only when left undisturbed, many of life's problems resolve themselves when we stop trying to fix what was never broken. The body is the clearest example. Your heart beats on its own. Your digestion unfolds on its own. Your immune system works tirelessly without consulting you. Every time you try to control these processes, you disrupt them. The same is true for the mind. Forcing happiness creates tension. Forcing clarity creates confusion. Forcing confidence creates insecurity. The harder you try to command your inner world, the more resistant it becomes. Wu Wei invites you to act in another way, by allowing. Allowing is not surrendering. Allowing is intelligence. It is the same intelligence that lets a sailor harness the wind instead of fighting the storm, or lets a painter follow the shape of the brush instead of gripping it with fear. When you stop imposing your will, your sensitivity increases. You begin to feel the natural rhythm of a situation, when to move, when to pause, when to speak, when to stay silent. Action grows from awareness, not anxiety. In communication, Wu Wei means listening so deeply that the right response arises without effort. In creativity, it means letting the work guide you instead of wrestling with it. In relationships, it means giving space rather than control. And in everyday living, it means recognizing that you don't need to push the river. The river is already moving. The more a person tries to dominate life, the more life pushes back. But when one acts without forcing, circumstances mysteriously begin to align. Problems soften, opportunities appear, resistance dissolves. What once felt like struggle now feels like flow. This does not mean you become inactive. It means your activity gains a new quality, smooth, fluid, and grounded in the present moment. Like a dancer whose body knows the movement without conscious practice, or a musician who becomes the melody rather than the performer. The action becomes transparent. The sense of I am doing this fades, and only doing remains. This is the heart of Wu Wei, effortless effectiveness, not because you are passive, but because you are no longer in the way. You become the open space through which life acts, and in that openness, everything begins to move with a kind of quiet perfection. One of the most difficult ideas for the modern mind to accept is the possibility that life cannot be divided into good and bad, right and wrong, fortunate and unfortunate. We cling to these categories as if they are essential for survival. Yet from the Taoist perspective, they are illusions, temporary interpretations based on limited vision. We judge events only by how they make us feel in the moment, not by what they truly are. Think of how often something that once seemed tragic later proved to be a blessing. A lost job led to a new path. A broken relationship reopened your life. A painful ending revealed its necessity years afterward. And the reverse is equally true. What once seemed like a triumph later became a disaster. The Taoist simply recognizes this pattern and refuses to be fooled. Lao Tzu suggests that since every event contains the seed of its opposite, no fixed judgment can ever be accurate. What looks beneficial today may create tomorrow's suffering. What looks harmful now may open tomorrow's freedom. Everything changes shape as it moves through time. Therefore, to cling to any rigid evaluation is to cling to a shadow. The Taoist learns to watch, not to label. Our suffering does not come from events themselves. It comes from our insistence on deciding what they should mean. When we call one moment a failure, we feel shame. When we call another a success, we feel anxiety about losing it. When we call an experience wrong, we resist it. When we call something right, we grasp it. In both cases, we abandon the natural flow and create inner friction. This is why the Taoist cultivates the attitude of non-choosing. Non-choosing does not mean apathy or indifference. It means allowing each moment to reveal its nature instead of imposing our judgments onto it. It means looking at life with eyes unclouded by hope or fear. Hope wants the future to confirm our desires. Fear wants the future to avoid our pain. But wisdom wants nothing. It simply sees. When you stop dividing life into categories, something remarkable happens. Your anxiety dissolves. There is no longer the desperate need to manipulate circumstances into what you believe is good. You become more flexible, more resilient, more peaceful. Even suffering takes on a different texture, less like an enemy and more like weather passing through. In this state, life is not something that happens to you. It is something that unfolds through you. Every moment becomes part of a larger movement that cannot be measured by immediate emotion. You begin to sense that the universe is not concerned with moral labels, but with balance, transformation, and rhythm. What looks chaotic today may reveal its harmony tomorrow. To see life without the filter of judgment is not blindness, it is clarity. It is the ability to witness the world as it is, not as we fear or hope it to be. And in this clarity, a deep calm arises, a calm that comes not from controlling life, but from no longer arguing with it. At the heart of human suffering lies a single illusion: the belief in a separate, isolated self that must defend itself against the world. This self feels fragile, temporary, and constantly threatened. It imagines itself to be a small island in a vast and unpredictable ocean. And because it feels separate, it feels afraid. Fear is not a flaw of nature. It is a byproduct of the illusion of separateness. But what happens when this illusion begins to weaken? When you realize that the you you've been protecting is nothing more than a pattern of thoughts, sensations, and memories. Something extraordinary occurs. Fear loses its foundation, not because danger disappears, but because the one who is terrified has been seen through. The Taoist understanding points to this truth again and again. What you truly are is not the anxious voice in your mind, nor the defensive posture of your ego, nor the bundle of worries you've mistaken for identity. What you truly are is the space in which all of these arise. You are the mirror, not the reflections. You are the open sky, not the clouds. When this is felt not as philosophy but as direct experience, an immense lightness enters life. This lightness is the same weightlessness spoken of in the earlier teachings. It is the recognition that you are not carrying the body. The body is simply happening. You are not thinking thoughts. Thoughts are arising and dissolving. You are not managing existence. Existence is unfolding effortlessly, like wind moving through the trees. When the sense of I fades into the background, the world becomes astonishingly vivid, vibrant, and immediate. And in this vividness, fear evaporates. Not because you become invincible, but because you no longer stand apart from life as something to be defended. You move through the world the way a reflection moves across water, present but unattached, real yet without weight, nothing to cling to, nothing to protect, nothing to uphold. This is the freedom that arises when the self stops interfering with its own existence. The very energy once used to maintain control now becomes available for presence. Instead of tightening around experience, you expand into it. Instead of resisting, you allow. Instead of forcing, you flow. It is the return to your original nature, the one that existed before you ever learned to be afraid. The Taoist masters often say that the highest form of living is to move as though absent. This does not mean disappearing from life, it means disappearing as an obstacle within life. When the rigid self dissolves, what remains is openness, sensitivity, grace, a way of being in which every action feels natural and effortless, like ripples forming on a lake without intention. And the miracle is this: being absent is what makes you fully present. When the self stops trying to control the world reveals itself in its full depth and clarity. Fear fades, not through courage, but through understanding. You are not a fragment of life. You are life itself, momentarily looking back at its own reflection. This is the quiet liberation waiting at the end of self-consciousness, a spacious, fearless existence in which you are no longer separate from the dance, but part of its movement.